morning. It's May 10th, 2014. My name is Jane Moore, and I'm with the Martinez Oral History Project. I'm here with Shirley Skardoff, who's doing our videoing, and we're so pleased to be interviewing Verner and Barbara Anderson in their home at 1151 Arlington Way. So we're going to be talking about their time here in Martinez and Verner's service in World War II, and just some of the wonderful experiences that they've shared together in their long and happy marriage. So thank you so much for both of you joining us. I'd like to just begin by having Verner tell us, your name, your date of birth, where you were born, and a little bit about your education, and then we'll have Barbara do the same.
I was named Verner after a family friend who had been adopted, and the last I saw of that particular person, he was still living in Santa Cruz. We visited him once or twice in my lifetime, but that's all. I was raised on the family ranch in Livermore with my grandparents, Chris and Ellen Anderson, and I was actually raised by their only daughter, my aunt Dora. And I know she tried hard to do a good job for me. Her name, I forgot to tell you, her name was Dora, and she never married. She spent all her time trying to make something out of me.
She did a good job.
Well, I hope she was half successful, but it was a lovely life.
When were you
there.
born, Verner?
I was born in Stockton, California, January the 8th, 1917. My father was working there as a, I believe he was working as a blacksmith at that time. That technically wasn't his trade, but he was a very capable person and able to do hard work very well. He was a strong person, much bigger than I. So it's made for quite a life.
What was his background? Was he ancestry?
He was born and raised in the old Robert Livermore house that I was raised in Livermore, on what had been Robert Livermore's original ranch. And he had 3 brothers and 1 sister. His sister Dora was my aunt that raised me. And it has just been fantastic life.
Great place to grow up. Was it
Great.
A really rural area at that time?
It was all farm area at that time. It was only about a mile from downtown Livermore, but it was still just far enough to be definitely a ranch.
Sure, in 1917 there wasn't a lot of road traffic.
No. In fact, I remember when the road going from what later became the highway, main highway through Livermore, was dirt. And all of the country roads were dirt-based. There weren't too many cars. I still remember my Aunt Dora taking me in my first year to school in a pony cart, and would also pick me up and bring me home in the pony cart.
Did you go to school in Livermore?
Yes. I attended grammar school and high school in Livermore, and I went to a number of night school classes too, but that was more after I came to Martinez.
And you were the graduating class from high school of?
1935.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
A few days ago.
Yeah. And Barbara, where were you? Can you tell us when you were born and where, and a little bit about your background?
Yes, I was born in Antioch, California, in 1921, and but I was adopted when I was 8 days old.
Okay.
And my foster mother, I was raised in Danville, and well, I first was adopted at in Berkeley at the Children's Home Society there. And my adopted father was a professor of entomology at the University of California.
Oh, wow.
Well, sadly enough, we had a home at Diablo, and he was doing something in a tree in the yard and fell and punctured his lung and got pneumonia and died when I was 3.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
never got to know him, unfortunately. I took his middle name. For my middle name, his name Shirley. And
His name was Shirley.
his name was Shirley
So that
Watson
became
Foster.
and that became your middle name. Okay.
And I took Shirley just for Barbara Shirley Anderson.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice memory.
Or Rickman, it was Rickman
Mm-hmm.
then. And anyway, my mother, he passed away, and my mother remarried Rickman. So I was Barbara Rickman. And I went to high school at in Danville, San Ramon Valley Union High School. And I graduated in '39, got married. And we moved to Martinez.
Did you have siblings in your family?
No.
You had a brother, didn't you?
I had, oh yes,
Yeah.
I had a brother Eric,
Uh-huh.
and he was also adopted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you both grew up with you
Yes,
together as
yes.
adopted kids in this very loving family.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
nice.
Yes, he passed away about 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. And he has a nephew, he has a son, correct, that you're
Yes,
close
uh-huh,
with. What's
yeah.
his name?
His name is
Michael,
Michael.
Michael.
Michael
daughter,
Rickman, of course. Rickman.
and a daughter.
And a daughter. We also have
Oh.
a niece in Texas,
Oh, how wonderful.
Abilene, Texas.
So you have a nephew and a great niece from your brother.
Pardon?
From your brother's side, you have
Yes.
a nephew and a great niece.
Yes.
Very nice. Good, good. So can you tell us a little bit about how you met? I know it was a lovely story that, it's just obviously was the right place at the right time.
Well, Verner was going through, he was transferred from Livermore to Martinez, and he would go on the weekends, go home, and of course he'd go through Danville. And of course he saw a girl that he thought he liked that walking down the street. So he wanted to meet her. And in the meantime, he'd picked up a friend of mine, and so he invited you, let's see, to the school or what? To the dance, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And so Verner went to the dance, and I was there, and
You came with someone else, though, didn't you, Werner? You had a
No.
date for
no,
the
I
dance?
He
wanted
was-
to meet the gal that I'd seen sashaying up and down.
And was that Barbara or was that
No,
someone
that was
else?
the other girl.
Okay, I got
The
the
other
story.
gal.
Okay, so you went as stag to the dance, hoping to meet the gal from downtown
Right,
Danville.
right.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, actually, I dated her several times and didn't find her as pleasant to be with as I thought I would have. And in the meantime, meeting Barbara,
You met at the dance that night, right?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I wound up dating her, and of
well,
course
we'd seen one
wound up.
another quite a while, but several different places.
Oh yeah,
And I was with my brother, and the third time he asked me out.
So you ended up going through Danville because you were living here in Martinez working, and you
Right.
were going home on the weekends to
Right.
see your aunt and your grandparents, and so of course the road at that time
Went
took you
right
right
through
through
it.
Danville, and you had to swing by and stop. And
that's
once
correct.
you found out Barbara lived in Danville, I could see the weekend trips became more important, right?
Oh yeah,
Never missed a weekend going home, right?
no,
So you've dated for a few years and realized that this was.
about a year,
About a year or so.
about a year.
So where did you get married and when?
We got married in the old Robert Livermore home that I was raised in.
Oh, how wonderful.
And there had been weddings there in early days,
Uh-huh.
and some of the family said that ours was a lovely wedding and equal to the prior ones.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
And what was the date? What date did you get married?
November,
June,
June
June
17th,
17th.
1939.
So this June 17th, we are coming up on 75 years of marriage.
Yes.
That is
Right.
just remarkably fantastic. And what I mean, so that's quite something this day and age, to not only be married that long, but to still enjoy each other's
Yes.
company so much.
We're very fortunate.
What's your little secret
Now,
for everyone else?
Barbara has been a very lovely person to live with.
Mm-hmm.
And we really have had very little things that disturb the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
We most always saw things pretty much together.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't had the conflict that some families have had, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just been very
Well,
pleasant to be with.
Well, you've been a very wonderful husband, too.
It's really
I've been very
wonderful
lucky.
because you are, they talk about soulmates, and I don't think that everyone gets to find their soulmate. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think you guys certainly did at a young age, and you were so fortunate
Yeah.
No,
to be able to find that. And to
we've
still-
never had what I would call a very serious fight or argument,
disagreement.
Well,
disagreement.
we did have, but
We,
we've always.
we seem to hit things
yeah,
pretty well
patched it up
together.
and-
Well, you figured out how to work out any differences you
that's
might have
right.
had. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I think, wouldn't you say that respect for the other person is a paramount?
Very definitely,
Mhm.
yes.
Mhm. I know you're both very respectful of each other and of everyone else, and
Yeah.
I think that's a really important trait
Yeah.
to bring to a relationship. Well, that's a beautiful story. Just think it's wonderful. I'd like to talk a little bit, because a lot of our interest here also is about the veterans service and honoring both the veteran and, their families and wives who carried on at home with them, and I just think that's a really important story for us to gather. So I know, Verner, you said that you were drafted
Right.
in your mid-20s. What year was that about? You remember?
Oh, gosh, I've forgotten the exact year, but it was at the relatively early part of the war I was drafted. And I wound up having to go to Idaho, Farragut, Idaho, for boot camp training, and came home on leave. I went back to be assigned to whatever would be next, and I wound up in hospital corps school.
Were you in what branch of the military?
Navy.
So did you choose the Navy, or did you get drafted into the Navy?
I was asked as to what I would prefer to be in,
Mm-hmm.
and I said Navy, and thankfully I did get it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people requested other branches and didn't get the one they wanted.
Right, right.
So I was fortunate there.
Okay. And you, I understand that originally you wanted to work as a cook or a baker or be in the kitchen. What was your motivation with
Well,
that?
I really
Safe.
didn't know what I wanted to do or be, and I didn't realize whether I'd have much choice or not.
Mm-hmm.
So when they asked what I'd like to do, the first thing I put down was motor mechanic,
Okay, of course, that
because
makes
I
sense.
loved working on cars, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to put down 3 or 4 selections, and the last one I put down cooks and bakers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that I would not be accepted for that or considered for that at all. So they actually put me into the hospital corps.
Did they tell you why you wouldn't be accepted for that?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it.
Go ahead, tell us. I think we should know.
Anyway, well, they said they had enough people with an IQ of 20 in that range that would make good cooks and bakers.
Mhm. So you had the higher IQ
And
level.
my IQ was 80 something,
Uh-huh.
and they put me into the medics. Working at The Napa State Hospital was very interesting work. It had to do, of course, working with people of the armed forces that had mental problems. And from there, from Napa, they would be, if they could recover them there, that was fine. But if they weren't able to, they needed more counseling, then they had to ship them to a place in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I've forgotten where that was. But it was quite a process. It was very interesting work. And
What did you do there? What was your role?
I was a medic.
Uh-huh.
And we had to see that the patients had their medications,
Mm-hmm.
see that they had a reasonable amount of exercise. One of them in particular I never forgot had a lot of exercise. The first time I saw him, he was up on a passageway that went around by a big tank.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going around this tank, which was about 20, 30 feet off the ground. And they had quite a rough time getting him down from the tank. Later episode, he dashed, well, he actually climbed over the wall of the recreation area. I don't know how he did it, but he was a very strong person. And he took off running, barefooted, and he ran from Napa to almost within the city limits of Fairfield.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we caught up with him. That's miles and miles of running. And he was able to do it, take it. And we brought him back. And I had trouble trying to follow him and catch up with him. I had a brand new pair of shoes on that day. And it didn't make my feet feel good.
Right, right. You were chasing after him with new shoes and getting blisters while he was...
I wasn't the only one. There were
Yeah.
about 4 or 5 of us that were looking for him. And to find him that far away was unreal.
That's amazing.
He was a good-looking guy and had a nice personality when he was acting reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
I often wondered really what became of him in later days.
Did you get your training? I mean, you didn't go into that role as a medic. How did they train you for something like that?
Actually, when I came home for leave, the initial leave from boot camp, I had to report back to Idaho, to Farragut, and I had no idea what I would wind up with. And they wound up putting me in a hospital course school right at Farragut. So I stayed for another 3, 4 months. I actually spent close to a year at Farragut, Idaho, right through the winter, which was rough.
boy.
Winters were cold,
Yeah, I bet.
especially when the heat went out in the barracks for about 3, 4 days.
Oh,
It was freezing,
yeah,
but it was pretty country.
yeah.
So that was about the extent of it. Then I was sent from Napa. I had to report over on the, oh gosh, I forgot the name of it, south of San Francisco. I had to report there, and I spent a month in that area. And then I was shipped overseas.
So you shipped out from South San Francisco
Yeah.
area. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that's when you went over on the Unit 3 landing craft?
No.
Okay.
Well, not until we got, well, I was shipped down south first, down to Long Beach
Oh,
area.
okay. Uh-huh.
And there I was put in a landing craft unit. And we practiced landing, although I didn't have much to do with the landing craft bit. Being a medic, that's more what I was kept at. But then we was Standard Landing Craft Unit number 30. And we were sent overseas for the invasion of Guam.
Oh.
And we took the 3rd Marines in on Guam.
Mm-hmm.
We only lost 2 of our men, and we wouldn't have lost them except that they disobeyed orders. And when the tanks and that we took in on Guam went inland, 2 of our men jumped on board the top of the tanks and rode in with them. They wanted to see action.
They were hot dogging it or something.
They were hot dogging it, and they saw action for about a mile,
Wow.
and that was the end of it.
Wow.
They were shot by the Japanese on Guam at that point. So it was a pretty sad situation that we lost them, but it was their own fault for not staying on their duty.
Mm-hmm.
So then Guam, being a medic, there were 12 of us all together. We had 2 doctors and 10 of us who were medic pharmacist mates, we were called. And I wound up being pharmacist mate 2nd class. And we were on Guam till the end of the war. And at that point then we were shipped home.
So were you actually stationed on the ship, or were you actually on land following
I was stationed on land after the ship
landed?
landed, yeah.
And did the landing craft actually come into the shore, or did they deploy in smaller boat ship? You know.
No, the landing craft were small to start with, and we went right in on the beach.
And then it opened up, and everybody came out the front,
Right.
like we've seen in
Yeah.
pictures and in the movies.
And some of the landing craft were big enough they would carry tanks, and of course those would go in also. So it was quite an operation.
I bet it was. What was? I mean, you're on a ship with men about the same age as you. A lot of them in the same situation. Some of them newly married, like you were. And what was the mood at the point when you pulled into Guam? I mean, I've read some things about the Marines pre-landing breakfast of steak and eggs, and the officers going around and checking them. I mean, it must have just been a tinderbox of feelings going on.
It was a very nerve-wracking experience, really, because you didn't know what you were up against,
Right.
what you would see, what you would have to do. The village that our group first landed in, there was a Marine had been killed, and he was laying on a cot right in the middle of the village, and he was there for over 3 days.
Oh my.
And in that tropical climate was a pretty rugged sight.
Right.
And frankly, we had quite a few come into sick bay to be treated for all sorts of problems they were having. You could trace it back to seeing this one person laying there that time. The maggots weren't fussy.
Right, right. So you were actually in a kind of a medic tent situation, a mobile hospital kind of situation? And then did they bring wounded to you, and did you have to treat the wounded?
Or in a lot of cases, the wounded had to come on their own.
Oh, really?
There were just too many at the time.
Did you feel prepared for that medically or training-wise, or did you kind of learn on the fly?
We were pretty well trained, but it was still a shock all the way around to get acclimated to working with it. And once things quieted down, then of course it became everyday problem.
I know you were you're an advocate or an avid photographer, and I just find it fascinating that you brought your camera. You brought your camera with you, right? What made you think of that, to bring your camera?
Well, I love taking pictures of Barbara, so, and every place I went, it was a very small camera and fit into my pocket.
Oh, okay.
So
What kind was it? Do you remember?
it was a Zeiss.
A Zeiss.
It had a Zeiss lens, and I
Uh-huh.
think it was also a Zeiss,
Okay.
which was top quality at that
Okay.
time. It was an excellent camera, and I carried it for many years, many thousands of miles,
Yeah.
and wound up having quite a number of other cameras
Mhm.
afterward. But it was one that took all my pictures overseas and
And did you-
elsewhere.
Mhm.
The nice thing about it, it was called a split 120, which meant it would take, instead of taking just 8 pictures on a roll of 120 or 116 film, it
Mhm.
used either one. It took double that. It took 16 pictures.
Okay.
So I was able to come home with a lot of pictures.
Did you bring your own film with you?
I brought some film, and then I managed to acquire film.
How'd you do that? 'Cause you're in the middle of a war. How are you getting film for your camera?
Well, it was a little difficult, but some of the fellas would like me to take a picture of them, or in time they started dating then some of the natives, and they'd want a picture of their native girlfriend. I said, I'll take a picture for you, but I need film.
Uh-huh.
You get me a roll of film, and I'll take 3 or 4 pictures
Sure,
for you.
sure.
Where there's a
And
will, there's a way.
There
I
you go.
wound up acquiring all of my film that way.
And so they would write home or something, and
You know, they'd get film from friends.
uh-huh.
There were places on the island where there were professional photographers
Okay.
for the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them would be nice enough to give you a roll of film
Uh-huh.
once in a while.
Right.
So I managed to get all the film I needed.
Wow. Interesting.
I never was short.
And did you bring all the film home and develop it at home, or how did you do it?
Well, I developed it on Guam.
You did.
Was able to get the chemicals from these other photographic places
Right.
and be able to develop the film. Then I would send the films home.
Uh-huh.
And of course, Barbara put them all aside, kept them handy
Saved
for
them all,
Then
organized them for you.
I printed them up when I got home.
So you gave, I know, you gave out something like over 12,000 photos, and you made packets, like over
Yes,
200.
I made packets of 200 to a packet. First, I sent all the fellas in our outfit. I sent them a note that gave the numbers of. I numbered all the films, it was 1 through 200, and an index of what each film was. And I sent that to most of the men in the that had been in the outfit, and especially ones said they would like to have film. And I charged them $20 for a set of 200, and I sold quite a few.
I bet. And you did that once you got home, because you had your
Yes.
own dark room here.
Right,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Wow, if you think about it now, Verner, and what we're doing with this oral history project, if you think about the impact that those pictures you took have on all of those families, that they have that documentation from their father or son's service, what a huge contribution.
Well, it was a lot of work,
Yeah, and I know it was your
and it
hobby,
was sure
but
worth
it was
it.
also,
It was worth it. I had a lot of self-satisfaction
I bet
from
you
it.
did. Yeah, I
Yes.
bet you did. I bet that they're
Yeah.
all very grateful, and I know
Yeah.
that there are generations of their families that don't even know who you are, and they're probably looking at these pictures saying, wow, thank you to whoever you are.
I'm surprised at how often I look at them myself.
Do you? Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I know
Oh,
that
yeah.
you gave us several, and we're going to scan them and have them available at the Martinez Museum. So
Yeah.
if people in Martinez want to come see them, they'll be available at the museum for them. So I think that's
That's
really
nice.
important also.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you served there, and when were you discharged?
Was it 42?
When I was discharged,
42?
I was shipped home to Los Angeles. And from Los Angeles, I was sent by train. I came up the valley by train.
To Oakland, was it Oakland or San Francisco?
No, no. I left from San Francisco, but I came back to Los Angeles. I came in at Long Beach, Long Beach area, and from there I went by train through the valley till I got to
Pleasanton, was it?
Pleasanton.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you were still in the Navy at that point?
yeah. I got to Pleasanton, and then I was discharged there.
And was Barbara, were you able to come and meet him in Pleasanton?
Yeah.
Boy, I bet you were so excited to.
Yeah, he was gone. Let's see. You were 19 months on Guam, and what year did you come back? I just.
I
I
think it
don't-
was 1942 is what our
Yeah.
notes said, yeah. So Barbara, you're here in Martinez. You've been married 3 years. Verner goes off on his military service. And what happened with you? How did you?
Well, I had a girl that lived with me that worked in the bank with Verner, and that was nice. So I had company in that.
Yeah.
And well, I went to work at Moda Day in Martinez, Mrs. Harrison.
That was a ladies' store?
Yeah, yes.
Fashion store,
And then I worked at JV.
What was JV?
That was kind of a teenage store, you know,
Oh, okay.
teenage clothes. And then, let's see, Arlene's. I worked at Arlene's for quite a while. I don't know how many years in Arlene's. About 3 years, I guess. And let's see, then I worked, well, that was just while you were in the service.
Yeah, what was it like in Martinez? I know from doing other interviews that Martinez had such a small town feeling of unity and support for both the troops when they came through because of the train station, but also for the families that were here. So what was the mood like for you as a wife being here and, you know, obviously writing letters and things like that, but, you know, was there other...
Well, it was hard.
Yeah,
you know, and I had a few girlfriends, and we'd go to dinner occasionally and that. And, you know, I really didn't do too much.
Well, you went up to Camp Stoneman to help entertain the boys,
Camp
the
Stoneman,
troops
yeah,
once in a
Well,
while.
I belonged to the commercial girls. That's right, commercial
well, tell
girls.
us about that. What was that?
And that was just a group of girls that got together and that worked in town. And so there, we did go up to Camp Stoneman, that's right, and danced, you know,
I've heard
danced with
they've
the
had dances up there regularly, so
Yeah.
you would go out, you'd go up there to help
Not
entertain?
much. I don't think I went 2 or 3 times with Betty and a friend of mine.
Betty, who was it, Betty?
Betty Olmquist, Betty
Okay.
Olson at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you'd go up just to dance, and because that's where a lot of the troops came
Yeah,
through,
just
and
dance
they
and
would.
then
Yeah.
come back. That's it.
Right, right.
But I would go a lot up to my mother was nursing up in the Napa area, and I would go and take her out. We'd go to lunch and go to San Francisco and see plays, and I was with her a lot. My adopted mother. Yeah. And so I don't know.
You just kept your life going, and obviously writing to Verner whenever,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure
sure.
regularly, and sending him whatever you could.
I taught her to drive before I shipped out,
Very smart.
so she was
Well,
able to
I'm
get
glad-
around
I'm sure glad
pretty
that I
well.
learned.
That was good thinking,
Yes.
absolutely. Because
She didn't
So
want to
I
learn.
was driving to the top of the Mark Hopkins Hotel, but and Mom and I'd go up there for lunch.
Well, there you see what you did, Verner. You got her
I-
driving. She was going into the city.
But you know, I've been driving all my life. I've never been able to drive up to the top of the Mark. I can't see that old Studebaker going up the outside of that building.
Right.
So you've had such a great history here in Martinez, both living
yeah.
here and working here, and even though you weren't born here, you've been here so long.
Well, I
It's
feel
just,
like it's my
It's the
home.
same
I
thing.
feel the same way too. And you know, other people who have done this interview, Harriet Burt and other people have said that, you know, they landed here for whatever reason and it became their second home. And I just think
Yeah.
that's such a universal theme with
Yeah.
this town,
Yeah.
and how even the native Martesians welcome you.
It's always a warm little place.
It is, isn't it?
Oh,
It's
yes.
great. It's great, especially our neighborhood, I must say, is
And
fantastic.
it's, you know, it's nice. We're close to everything, and yet, you know, it's kind
We
of
have
quiet.
country atmosphere,
Yeah,
but
small-
right next to Oakland,
So it's
San
nice.
Francisco,
We like it.
Small
Sacramento.
town feeling in the middle of a big area.
Yeah.
So when you first moved here, you lived in a little apartment on Henrietta Street, right? 416 Henrietta Street. How did you end up getting there? Is that just what you found, or?
Well, yeah, that's the our first home.
Yeah, that's where we first
You were
lived.
working for the Bank of America
I was working
at that
for the
time,
bank,
right?
right. It just happened to have a for rent sign out in front of it. And
Mm-hmm.
stopped and asked what it was and looked at it and thought it was all right.
Did you live there
I remember.
before you got married, or is this after you?
No, after.
Okay.
After.
So while you were working at the Bank of America and making your weekend trips home, passing through Danville, where did
Yeah.
you live, Verner, when you were here? Was that when you
I
rented
lived I lived over on the other side of town,
Oh, okay.
and I lived in the basement room. I can't even.
What a bachelor.
What the heck was the name of the street? Not Talbert. What is it?
Talbot, no.
I can drive to the place
Yeah.
You mean
any time.
where
But
you lived with?
yeah, where I lived when I
Oh,
batched when I was in the basement.
What street
Well, that's
that
okay. So you had a bachelor apartment in a basement.
Yeah.
Boy. And then when you lived at 1025 Arlington Way, down the street now, where Ned and Elaine Sewell currently live, did you rent a room there?
No.
No, we owned,
we owned it.
we bought the
Oh, this was down the street across from Evelyn
Oh,
Berlatani's house.
no, I rented a room
oh.
there.
Right.
Yeah, that was George Eddy's house.
George Eddy?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He was the one that developed the area here.
Oh, I didn't know
He
that.
was a realtor.
Okay.
And he had subdivided this.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived with he and his mother.
Okay.
He
so
was
you-
a bachelor.
uh-huh.
He never married.
Huh.
And I lived there for, good year or more.
Mm-hmm. You rented a room upstairs.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then they provided you with your meals, and
No,
No.
I provided me with my meals.
did you cook in the kitchen there?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a fella butcher that lived with you? No,
Uh,
not there.
No, that was over on the
that
other
was over on
side
the
of
other
town.
side, yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I lived with a butcher on the one across town,
Mm-hmm.
and that was good. He supplied the meat, and I cooked it.
Oh, there you go. What a great relationship.
It was great.
Yeah, yeah.
We had an electric heater about that big around.
Uh-huh.
That was our cook
That was your stove.
That was our stove. We cooked everything on that.
One pan meal.
One pan meal.
Wow. So you were
But we sure had a lot of good meat.
well, you know, it's totally different meat then, so that was great.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, with him being a butcher, that made it right.
You got the right cuts.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. That's fantastic. And then when you moved back after the war, and then when you were married, and you lived in Mountain View, was that where you lived at the time when Verner went to
Martinez
the
Avenue.
service?
Mhm.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And was that common for wives to have a girlfriend move in with them or something, just so they could have? Were there other people in town who were doing that too, or was that just
Well, I just, Laura I wanted somebody to.
be in your
I
house?
liked her, and
Mhm.
she just stayed with me during the war.
That was Laura. Was her last name was Croco?
Yes, uh-huh.
Is she still? Do you still see her? Is she still
She's
around?
still
uh,
living.
She just had her 90th birthday in Modesto.
Yeah.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And she has a daughter. She had married.
That was the
him.
last time we saw her.
You saw her for her.
She lives
90th
in
birthday.
Tracy now.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Wow,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So then you moved to this neighborhood,
Mhm.
and I believe you lived across the street from your current residence at, what was it, 1948 Arlington Way?
Mhm.
Uh-huh. And how long did you
No,
live?
was that
No.
for 1948?
What was the address across this? Those are, It was the
I'll
house
have-
across the
I'll have
street.
to walk across
1148.
more.
11,
Okay.
11:50.
11:48.
Yeah,
11:48,
11:48, right. Okay, that makes more
Yeah,
sense.
that's 11:51. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is 11:50.
11:48.
yeah, you only had to change the last two digits.
Yeah.
And you were living there and you were you'd admired this house for quite a while, hadn't you?
Yeah,
went
I
up for
always,
sale for
always
about
liked
3
the looks
months.
of it.
When was this house built, the house you're in?
This one,
26?
we're guessing about 1926.
That was a very modern house for 1926, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, the people that built it were the ones that started,
Oh,
they sold all sorts of
the
small
wrought
things.
iron, what was it?
Ornamental.
It was
Yeah,
ornamental
well,
stuff.
it was iron works, that they,
Yeah.
iron things
This
like.
house had more
know,
wrought iron. It's the one that
fences
was able to hold it up.
Oh,
It was just full of wrought iron.
Was it really?
Wrought iron passageway
You're
there.
right, yeah, all
The other one in
the
the
stairs.
wrought iron
oh,
going
that,
into
we
the
had
kitchen.
chandeliers that were wrought iron, black wrought iron.
Maybe this was more like their show house.
Yeah.
But
So
I-
you watched it and then you sold your house that you were in at 1148. How much
Yeah.
did you sell that for?
Well, we sold almost traded houses.
Uh-huh.
We sold one for 12,000. I think we paid 12 or 12.5 for this one. I don't remember which one was 12,000. One was 12.5.
So you just basically swapped houses
Swapped
and moved
houses.
across the street
Yeah.
and just probably put a few things in a box and carried it up all these
Quite a
stairs.
few
Well, you
things.
couldn't move a
Quite a few
truck or
things.
anything wouldn't help.
Yeah, let me just comment on the entrance to your home. For those people that are just seeing this as we're sitting in your beautiful living room, you guys have quite a flight of stairs to get up here.
26.
Yeah, no doubt that you've counted
And
them.
11 to the bedroom.
And 11 to the bedroom. And I think that's probably a big secret in staying young and so physically fit.
I think so too. It's our exercise.
I think it has helped me considerably in life. You go to a doctor for an examination, he'll tell you you need exercise. Go climb 4 or 5 stairs.
Right.
That's a frequent
Comment.
comment for a doctor to make. So we've taken them at their word and then some
Right. Well, and your garage is down on the street
on
level.
the street level.
And your mail is down on the street level.
Right.
And your newspaper and
Everything.
everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
And we're up and down these stairs
And you're
all
up
day.
and down these stairs, right, of course. So it's really remarkable. And it's not a big, wide, expansive entrance. So moving in here, although you were younger, it must have
Yeah.
been a real challenge too to bring.
Well, I used to walk home in high heels
Yeah.
for lunch.
So yeah, that's interesting. So you both worked downtown and you walked
Walked
to downtown
downtown and back.
in high heels.
I
And-
didn't.
And
She
you
did.
did.
Don't do that
Well,
anymore.
right, thankfully. And then you'd come home at lunch too?
Yeah, we'd come walk home at lunch.
So did you go to work at the same time? You walked to work together and
Yeah.
Well, no, well, yeah, we usually, I guess we did. I don't know whether we walked at lunchtime together all the time, but maybe we did, I don't remember.
I've heard stories that people have seen you walking up and down Main Street holding hands on your lunch break. So you must have taken your lunch breaks together.
Yeah.
What was downtown like then? I mean, it was you had ladies' fashion shops and you had
Everything, Montgomery wards, pennies, and
Wards and pennies were
And,
big draws for Martinez.
4 or 5 ladies' shops and several men's shops. There's just a lot of
I always remember
business.
when Wards closed their store.
Where was it located?
On this side of town, across the street. The building's
Where the
still
Mexican
there.
restaurant is.
Oh, is it
across
the La
street.
Tapatia building now?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
right at the corner of Main and...
yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember local merchants coming into the bank, and they'd be talking. Oh, boy, do you hear Wards is closing? They're pulling out. Isn't that great?
Oh,
Now we'll get their business.
uh-huh.
Excuse me, but the damn fools didn't realize it. Wards was bringing the business that they got.
Sure.
When Wards closed, they could have shut this town down.
Is that right?
That was a big draw when
Pennies too.
that they lost when that store closed.
Why did they close? Did they...
I guess they weren't doing enough business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was a huge store, really. It was two levels.
2 stories, huh?
Yeah.
So working in the bank, you had a whole different perspective on the basically on the economic,
Yeah.
level of
You
downtown.
could see some of those things that most of the local people wouldn't be aware of.
Sure, sure.
And of course, you could hear what a lot of the locals were saying.
And you heard what the merchants were saying, I would imagine, too.
And they were the ones that were cutting their own throat. They were so tickled that Ward's was closing.
Uh-huh.
Now they'd have all that business.
They had no
But
idea.
without Ward's,
Mm-hmm.
there was nothing to draw the people.
Nobody.
People used to come from Pittsburgh
Mm.
more so than shopping
Well,
up
when,
there.
when we were
They
out
came
in
from
Danville,
this whole area of the county, Danville, all over
well, we
came
got
to
all our school
Martinez.
closed. There was no place to go out there. Walnut Creek didn't have
Yeah.
anything either those days.
Yeah, Walnut Creek was.
So even when you were growing up in Danville, you came up here to Martinez because that's where all the big stores were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Boy, it's certainly different now, isn't it?
I
Oh,
should say.
wow.
Hmm. Different focus now.
Too
Yeah,
bad.
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. Well, I think that, well, obviously times have changed and people shop differently, and
Yeah,
and just the whole idea of a men's fashion store and a women's fashion store to most of the young people nowadays is just, what do you mean? That's. Did you buy your clothes downtown, Verner?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I bought most
From
of it
Leo.
from Leo
From
Martin.
Leo. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we've had a lot of the great stories about what the town used to be like, and any small community has those stories, I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
And it's just nice to be able to remember the vibrant,
Yeah.
life. And the challenge now, I think, is to figure out a way to bring that vitality back. It's going to be different. It's never going to be the same, but how to keep it as a draw.
I think it's a little bit better than it has been.
I agree. In what ways? How do you?
Well, just I think a few more people are shopping here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the activities picked up just a little.
That's good. That's good.
I may be wrong, but
Well, no, but you have a sense of the historic passage of downtown, and that's, that's important.
We have a few empty stores.
no,
and
that
empty
part's all right.
freezers, but-
Yeah, and I think they're trying to recreate different activities and things like that.
Mhm.
Well, I know you mentioned your love of working on motors and cars, and,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
know you and my husband and other Bill and other neighbors share the passion of the motorcycles. And I know you've had the Indians, so
Right.
can you tell us a little bit about, I think you had more than one, and there was
Two.
two. What years
I,
were they, and how did you come across those? And
well, I always enjoyed motorcycles, and even as a kid I had two Harley Davidsons that I repaired and got running. I did that on my grandmother's hook rug,
on her hook rug
on a hooked rug
in
that
the
she'd
living
made.
room.
Why she didn't kill me for it, doing it, I don't know. But I had the motor completely apart, and I got it running. But of course, I was on the ranch, and I rode it out in the field. But I came across an ad for an Indian, 4-cylinder Indian for sale, and I always wanted that particular model. I have a cousin in Southern California that had a brand new one that he'd bought. In fact, he had 3 children, and he bought each of them a new Harley and himself a 4-cylinder Indian. And I always wanted one like he had. So I saw this ad for an estate sale, and I went and took a look at it, put in an offer, and I wound up getting it.
What year was it?
It was 1941, and it ran, but not good. But it would run, smoked like the devil, but I completely overhauled it, doing most of the work myself, not all of it. The engine I took out and had it completely redone. Put it back in, and it ran just beautiful, like new. And I put, well, between the 2 motorcycles I restored, I rode them 93,000 miles
Wow.
altogether.
You did all that restoration here, didn't you?
Yes,
In your
and the
second
garage down here.
Right, right.
43,
Huh?
43, wasn't it that you, years? Oh, miles you're talking about, yeah.
Miles,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, the four-cylinder, I had that for a good many years, and then I decided that I should quit riding. I'm getting too old. So I sold the four-cylinder, and also during that time, a friend of mine, I had let store a two-cylinder Indian in the old garage, and that sat leaning against the wall for 13 years.
Oh my gosh.
And he had a stroke.
Mm.
And I'd asked him a couple of times if he ever wanted to sell it. He never wanted to sell it. So after he had the stroke, about 6 months or a year after he had the stroke, he gave me the motorcycle.
Oh.
He couldn't talk anymore, but he could signal with his hands and that, and indicate what he wanted. He was trying to tell me that I'd gone over to see him before Christmas. He lived in Benicia, and he was making all sorts of signals with his hands. I finally said, "Jim, are you trying to tell me something about the Indian, the motorcycle?" He shook his head yes, pointed at his wife, pointed at their bedroom, and she knew what he wanted. She went in the bedroom, came back with a pink slip.
Oh. Wow.
And I wanted to pay him. He wouldn't take a penny for it. So that's how I got that one.
Wow.
It was quite a long time I waited for it, but it was worth it.
Well, you gave it a good home, and
Well, it had a good home. I had the engine overhauled on that one, too, which it needed. And I rode both of them.
You did. I know that
Yeah.
you used to go on motorcycle rides.
Yeah.
Because weren't there a bunch of the people, some of the men in the neighborhood would all go on the motorcycle
Yeah, there'd
rides?
be 4 or 5 of us
Who
go.
were some of the? Who was your group that you rode with?
Oh gosh, I don't.
Well, Bill Pearson.
Bill, yeah,
Right.
And we had a lot of you. Bill Cabral went with you.
yeah,
I know Brad, my husband
Brad.
Brad, got to go on the
Brad.
last ride that you did.
Oh.
yeah.
He
was-
said, "Boy, you should see Verner. He may be you were 93, I think, at the time or something."
Yeah, I
He says
think so.
he's out there leading the pack. It was a real honor.
Yeah, no, that was a nice ride.
Yeah, those were great.
Yeah.
It was wonderful that you could go out and just kind of take those day trips and,
Yeah.
and things like that. So,
Yeah, I hated to quit, but I did.
and didn't you give one to your nephew?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I gave him the twin, the last one. The one that
That
I
you-
rode with Brad. The four-cylinder, I sold that one.
Uh-huh.
I sold it too cheap. But the Chief I gave to my nephew,
Nice.
and he still rides it.
That's good. And he's down in L.A.
Yeah,
Good. So did
He
that?
shows it too. He
Yeah,
gets-
did it have some history behind it? I know there was a movie made about the Indian chief, but was that just in general about the chief model, or was it about your motorcycle? So there's some history behind the Indian chief motorcycle.
well, there's a lot of history behind the Indian Chief, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall that it would be necessarily mine,
Okay, okay.
except for a person my age to ride a motorcycle
Yeah.
that old.
You would say that would be
Was-
some history, yeah. Well, now that we've got that documented. Giving hope to all 90-year-olds out there that it's not too late.
But you rode for 43 years total.
I
Yeah.
rode for 43 years
Yeah, you did.
altogether.
Yeah, you did. And you
Yeah.
both used to travel, you enjoyed traveling also together,
Oh
didn't
yes,
you?
we've did a
Very
lot
much
of-
so.
We've traveled the United States, haven't we, by car?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Every year when vacation time hit, the car was gassed, fresh oil and everything, all greased and ready to roll. We'd figure, well, we'll leave about 5 in the morning
Uh-huh.
to go wherever we're starting the direction we were going in. We'd wake up at 3. What the heck, let's go.
Well, we had no.
We'd leave at
So
3 in the
excited
morning.
you'd
Keep us
get,
home.
right, right.
And we'd take off. Well, we've gone from here up into Canada, and quite a bit of Canada we've driven in, quite a bit of northern Mexico, and course, California, we covered that quite thoroughly, and into Nevada a lot.
Oregon and
And,
Washington.
Well, we didn't go too far east. Salt Lake City area, we went there a number of times, that section. And from Salt Lake, we'd go south, then come back through southern areas of the states.
Did you plan a trip, or did you just kind of pick a destination, get in
No,
the
we'd
car and go?
sort of figure where we wanted to go, try to cover some place we hadn't been. We did go up the coast a lot of times, so, but those were usually 2-3 day trips.
Yeah, sure.
And that we always loved it. And then cruises, we took quite a few cruises.
14.
14 cruises? That's quite a few.
I loved cruises.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Barbara liked the cruises.
And we always took all the tours, you know, so
Uh-huh.
we made the most of our
Yeah.
trip.
Of course.
A lot of people take the cruise, they never leave the ship.
Right.
We
That's
left
kinda
the ship
crazy.
every chance we had.
Up and went and saw whatever that was there.
Whatever was there, we'd probably never get
Right,
there again,
right.
so
Well,
why
and-
not?
I could see that the ship would be attractive to Barbara, because I know that you have to bring a lot of nice clothes on those trips, and I'm sure you
Oh,
were
yes.
really happy about any
And I love to
opportunity.
dance.
I know, it
Yeah.
was right up your alley, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and Verner got to have the most beautiful, date on the ship, so I mean, it was
Absolutely.
pretty good
I don't know.
deal for
Absolutely.
both of you, I'm sure. I'm sure. And you were both involved in some community organizations. I know, Barbara, you did a lot of volunteering with the Cancer
Oh,
Society.
lots of it, yeah.
And what brought you into that as an interest?
Evelyn DeVito, my best friend, one
Mm-hmm.
of my best friends, she was the head of it and traveled for it and everything. So, but we do a lot of, like Concord Inn, we had a big extravaganza thing
Mm-hmm.
over there, and just a lot of
Fundraising and
benefits
Mhm.
for
it's a
cancer.
great
I
organization.
had cancer myself.
Oh, did
for a
you? So
while.
there was a more personal connection there too,
Well,
certainly.
more,
Yeah, right.
More
good.
recently, though, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I'm
And-
fine.
Yeah, yeah, good. That's always good news to hear. And Werner, what was I think that Barbara said that you were part of the Luso?
Luso,
Yes.
yeah, that was a
fraternity?
Portuguese social club.
Uh-huh. Was that just
And-
here in Martinez, or was that kind of
Uh,
area-wide?
Concord, well, we were in, we
We-
went to
most of the time,
Pittsburgh.
We went to Pittsburgh or
Mm-hmm.
Concord to meet with the group,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd have dances and that sort of thing. We didn't have dance at every meeting, but
No.
almost though.
Yeah,
They were
Good
very,
food.
very lovely
Yeah.
people, very
Mhm.
good
Very
food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So that was a social group
That was a social
based on the
group.
cultural
yeah.
Portuguese
Yeah.
heritage. Mm-hmm.
We haven't heard from any of them. I don't know whether they're still living or not, the ones that we knew.
Yeah.
well, a lot of them are gone, of course.
Well, sometimes, yeah, you lose
Yeah.
your friends,
That's
or
right. Yeah.
people move because
Yeah.
they move to live with family
Yeah.
members or something. So it's kind of hard.
I quit
We had
driving at
fun
night
with them.
Yeah.
as a whole.
Yeah.
A little bit, but not much. Downtown and back, that's
We
about
got
it.
so we didn't want to go Highway 4 either.
I
Yeah.
can't say
at
as I
night.
blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course,
right.
we're not going out at night at all now unless
Right.
somebody takes it.
Yeah, it comes and picks you up. Yeah. Right. Right. And you also had a ski boat, I understand.
Oh, yeah.
I could just see both of you out on the Delta in a ski boat. Somehow I don't have a hard time visualizing that at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Where did you keep it down here at the marina?
In the garage
Oh, in the garage. So what did
It
you
was
tow
just
it
a
down
small
with?
boat.
car.
Okay.
We used it
It was
for
on a
skiing.
trailer.
Okay, and
Yeah.
you just launched
It's on
it
a
when
trailer
you
and
went out for
I
the
We
just
day.
didn't,
launch it.
We went up to the
We went up to Delta most
the
of the
Delta,
time.
yeah.
And did water skiing?
Yeah.
Were you both water skiers?
Yeah, yeah.
And so one would drive and the other would
Uh-huh.
ski?
Yeah.
That
And
is-
we'd always
We
have
had a lot of
somebody
friends,
else
too,
with
with
us.
us.
Of course, of course. You were friends with John Walsh, right?
Well, we knew John
knew
real
John.
well,
Yeah.
but
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
Who's
but-
also done the Martinez
Yeah.
oral history
Oh.
yeah,
with
he-
us.
we used to see John a lot, but we never did any skiing with him or
No,
anything.
just made sure you stayed out of the way of his patrol
Yeah.
boat, right?
Yeah,
Well, the Delta is just such a great place then. Were there
It was
restaurants along the, could you ski and stop and eat and,
Yeah.
It was great.
What was that like?
We took our own lunch most of the time.
Well, we all
whoever
took
we're with,
something,
we-
you know, and
We take a picnic lunch. And,
we take quite a few,
Yeah,
and everybody'd ski, most of them especially. And
yeah.
then we went to Riverview Lodge.
Oh, yeah, where was that?
That was right on the Delta.
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
I was at Antioch.
okay.
yeah, and I was on their float.
I think it's still there. I don't know.
For the parade.
We haven't been up that way for ages.
You were on their float for the parade?
Yeah.
Which parade was that? Just,
Well, it was the Antioch parade.
Okay.
Fourth of July parade, was
Oh,
it?
Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah, Fourth
so
of
you were
July
one of the
parade.
beauty queens on the float for
Yeah,
the, of course you were.
She was
We
on the
used to-
float every
we
year
used
for
to,
about 3-4
have a lot
years.
of fun there.
I
at
bet.
Riverview.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, and they asked
Yeah.
me.
They asked you and you said,
Yeah.
of course.
Leo Battaglian was the one that owned it
Yeah.
at that
Uh-huh.
time.
Yeah.
He passed away and his brother took it over. We never got as close to the brothers as we were with Leo, but Leo, he just couldn't do enough for us.
He was such a nice
He was
guy, yeah.
one great guy. I had a lot of fun with Leo.
Was he from Martinez?
No, I don't remember. I
They're
think he
from
was.
Antioch.
I think he was from Antioch.
They're from Antioch.
I think so. He had a
He
nice
had
swimming pool at his home. And we spent a lot of time there.
I bet. And so then was the Riverview, was it right on the
It's
Delta?
right on the
That was right
water.
on the water.
Oh, how
Right
nice.
on
Yeah.
the water, and
Yeah.
it was very nice.
In fact, we took
Antioch.
our boat from here up a couple of
I was
times.
going to say, that'd be a
for
fun way to
lunch.
go. Sure.
For our boat, that was a long haul.
Was it?
Yeah. It was a good haul if it was calm,
Mm-hmm.
but it could get awfully rough.
The Delta water can be a little challenging, can't it?
Well,
Floating.
really challenging from the bridge here on past Pittsburgh.
Oh,
You
okay.
got past Pittsburgh, then it was all right again.
Uh-huh.
But otherwise, you could get some rough water.
And the currents were,
Well, the currents didn't bother our boat, and we had plenty. Had a lot of power, but it was not that big a boat.
And a lot of times,
So
big
the waves
big
could
boats would
push
come
you
by, and
around
then
a
we'd
little
really
bit.
have a
oh, the
challenge.
wakes from the bigger ships, bigger boats.
Yeah, that
Especially when I
wasn't
was
the
pulling
best
Verner with
either,
the ski.
huh?
When I was pulling you with the ski,
Yeah, Yeah.
when you were on skis,
yeah.
and that big,
There's a
Great
big boat
big
coming
thing
along.
came by, my
It had a
goodness.
wave about this high.
so Verner says, "Step on it, step
I
on it." 'cause
hollered,
he'd
I
go
hollered
down
as
if
loud as I could, hit it, meaning give it the gas,
Right.
and she did. And boy, that little boat
You put
went
the
and
throttle
hit.
down and he took off.
I sure
I
did.
stayed. If she hadn't put the throttle down, I'd have got knocked off.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah,
That
because
big?
you just
That boat
sinking.
jumped
Sure.
up that wave and went on and kept me going.
Wow.
I don't know whether I was on a single or a double ski then. I think I was on a single.
Wow. That is.
I haven't forgotten that.
I
never
think it's
had
pretty
either.
vivid. No, it's
I thought
obviously
you were going to
vivid.
sink for sure, and then what would I do?
You'd have to circle around and pick him up.
Drag you.
Yeah.
She had to do that a couple of times.
Well, that's
but,
kind of
but
standard
that
operating.
particular one time, thank God she hit it.
Yeah, yeah. That's just the synchronicity of your marriage. Hit it. Boom. Well, are there any things that you feel like you would like to say and have on this video and this recording about your life here and just your community, or anything that you would like to make as closing comments?
Well, we certainly loved living in Martinez.
Yeah, we just love Martinez, and we've enjoyed living here, so much. And as I say, it became our home for sure. And
I think we feel more like we've
enjoyed it,
been
and we
raised
just
here.
have so many friends here that are most of them are gone now, but we've enjoyed it very much.
Mm-hmm. You've had a really rich and beautiful life, and you still have a rich and beautiful life, and
Right.
very fortunate. Very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor
Well,
for me,
Hey.
and I'm so
Such-
glad that you participated in this, and we'll have this as a history in Martinez and for your families to have and to share, and it's just really been lovely.
We're the
Well, it's
ones that
lovely
feel
of you
honored
Oh.
to have us.
I
and-
think it's
and,
been so sweet
we
of you
appreciate it,
to do
Jane,
this.
very much.
Just
Well, I'm
so
so glad
nice.
that you
Yes.
agreed. Thank you, Barbara. You're so sweet. All right. Thank you.